What is going on, everybody? It is me, Jamocha from Sounds Nerdy, and welcome to The Blip, the show in which I cover news, highlights, and events from the world of tech. And let me give you a quick rundown on the stories that we'll be covering for you today. AMD Ryzen 7800 series CPU is burning up and destroying motherboards from ASUS and Gigabyte. Talk about giving a new definition to on fire. Microsoft Edge is leaking every URL that you visit back to Bing. Looks like Microsoft is up to its old spying ways. But the first story I will be covering, Samsung loses billions on chips as overall profits decline by a whopping 95%. But before I jump into each of these stories, if you are new to this channel, do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new content that I put out. And just a reminder, all the stories that I will be covering for you today can be found on my website at sounds30.com, where I curate and aggregate tech news from around the web and bring it to you in one convenient location at sounds30.com. So make sure you go check that out. All right, let's jump into our first story. Samsung again loses billions on chips as overall profits decline by a whopping 95%. This is a story out of The Verge. Samsung's memory chip business just had a terrible quarter, as falling demand and high inventories contribute to 4.8 trillion won, or around $3.4 billion US, loss from the division, Bloomberg reports. The loss at the unit, which CNBC reports is typically the largest profit driver, contributed to Samsung's quarterly operating profit plunging 95% in the quarter to 640 billion won, or $478 million. That is a huge difference from the previous quarter. I mean, Samsung is getting killed right now. A few different factors contributed to Samsung's losses, as its memory chip division, smartphone, and PC makers stockpiled chips during the pandemic as a hedge against supply issues as demand boomed, but have since been left with large inventory excess as consumer demand has dropped off amidst high inflation and broader global economic uncertainties. We're all are all aware of what's going on around the globe in terms of economics and the high inflation that we have here, definitely in the United States. And Samsung is starting to feel that pinch right now. This is Samsung's lowest quality operating profit since 2009, 14 years ago. Samsung hopes the chips business will start to pick up in the second half of this year. That's when existing inventories are expected to have run down and new smartphone and PC launches will spur demand. That's tied to hopes of economic recovery in China, which Bloomberg notes is the largest market for the PC and smartphone worldwide. Of course, China is the largest market. They have about 1.4, 1.5 billion people, so that will be the largest market. So Samsung is obviously hoping that that will drive their profits going forward. Samsung, one of the world's largest supplier of memory chips, has warned of its rocky quarter in its preliminary earnings earlier this month. In response, it plans to cut memory chip production by a meaningful amount to help stem a roughly 70% fall in prices over the previous months. Skip down here to this last paragraph here. It wasn't all bad news for the South Korean electronics giant. Profits at the smartphone division, which saw the launch of the Galaxy S23 lineup last quarter, rose 3% to around $2.9 billion versus the previous year. So it looks like Samsung is in a big hurting, but again, they hope that this will recover with new launches coming out later this year. Mainly, you're going to be looking at probably the Galaxy S Tab lineup and the Galaxy Z Flip 5 and the Z Fold 5. So hopefully, and then after that will be in the first quarter will be the Galaxy S24. So it looks like Samsung is hoping that this will turn around for them. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how Samsung bounces back from that. Next story is Microsoft Edge is leaking every URL that you visit to Bing. All right, this is a story out of BGR. Microsoft is under fire for its questionable user tracking tactics for years, but this has not dissuaded the company from continuing to collect oodles of data. To that point, a Redditor recently noticed that the newest version of Microsoft Edge sends a request to this website called bingapis.com with a full URL of nearly every site that a user visits. This is tremendous amount of tracking that Microsoft is doing. But let's just keep reading and see how Microsoft spins this. Searching for references in the URL gives very few results. No documentation on it on this feature at all. Wrote that the hacker MacFace, I guess that's the Redditor who found it. Sorry, I can't believe I'm the first to discover this. Redditors responded to the thread to figure out that the Bing APIs is a Microsoft-owned domain, so Microsoft is aware of that, and others have reported that the site to any that run in the past. Let's keep going here. They were not able to determine why the company would implement such a egregiously invasive feature, but The Verge reached out to software engineer Rafael Rivera to see if he could figure out what was going on. As it turns out, Microsoft might have just made a mistake. Okay, so that's how Microsoft is going to spin it. Microsoft Edge now has a creator follower feature that is enabled by default, Rivera explained. It appears that the intent was to notify Bing once you're on certain pages such as YouTube, The Verge, and others, but it doesn't appear to be working correctly. Instead, sending nearly every domain you visit to Bing. So this is Microsoft trying to spin that as, it was it looked like a bug to a feature that they had implemented. For one, in my opinion, I'm not buying this whatsoever. In my opinion, I believe that this is something that Microsoft had intended to do. They wanted to track every URL that you were visiting, and now that they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, they're trying to spin their way out of this as if they made a mistake. But something like this type of feature would have been tested a lot and should have been heavily tested by the QA department, because there's no way that the QA department would not have seen something like this, before it actually was released out. And not only that, before we release it out to the grand public, they release it out to like a small pilot group of users first off. So I don't know how many, maybe a few thousand or a couple of 10,000 or whatever, before they actually release it out to the grand public. So I'm not buying Microsoft's excuse that this is a bug or something. I'm thinking they just got caught and now they're trying to backpedal off of this. Let me click on this another one here. This is something about them, how they had their in the past. Microsoft shows off how much data its users collecting, how much data it's collecting from Windows 10 users. And specifically here, you can see here are some of the stats that Microsoft has been keeping its tabs on. And here's a paragraph here I wanted to talk about. The statistics indicate that Microsoft may be collecting more data than initially thought, writes Brickman. What is unclear what data is exactly collected. It is clear that the company is collecting information about the use of individual applications and programs on Windows at the very least. So again, Microsoft has been spying on you. So I'm not buying the fact that this was a bug. I believe Microsoft was intentionally doing this. So now they got caught. So now they're trying to spin this some type of way. And again, in my opinion, I'm not buying it whatsoever. All right, and then the last story here. AMD Ryzen 7800X3D series CPUs burning up and destroying motherboards from ASUS and Gigabyte. All right, here's this is an article out of WindowsCentral.com. What you need to know: custom desktop PCUs with ASUS, Gigabyte, and other motherboards are experiencing lethal overheating with the Ryzen 7800X3D series CPU. The exact causes are known at this point, but speculating points to EXPO overclocking, profits providing excessive voltage. Users on Reddit have shared photos of their Ryzen CPUs with the same board style, damaging the effect it had on motherboard socket. Now, as of when this article was created on the 24th, there wasn't a fix, but I do have another article that will point to the fix that AMD has put out for that one. So what the problem is that, again, it's overheating, and then also the die itself is actually being damaged by this overheating, as some of the users have pointed out, which is a physical problem. It's not just a software issue. This is the actual physical problem that is occurring on these motherboards, which is not good by AMD at this point. AMD is having some issues overall, but if they did come out with a fix here, preventing Ryzen burnout. Motherboard maker issues a new firmware, and this is out of Tom's Hardware. Actually, the fix here is, in brief, ASUS answer is to limit the maximum available system on chip voltage to 1.3 volts. The statement of intent was issued earlier today, and the ASUS exec said users should be able to find the new safe BIOS with the 1.3 V limit within the next 24 hours. So ASUS's answer to this problem is to limit the amount of voltage that you can send to the CPU at this point. So again, this is not necessarily a fix. This is a reduction or limiting the voltage that you can have into the CPU. Again, I know that they're aware of that it's probably burning out motherboards and it's causing physical damage to the dies or the pins or whatever. So I just wonder what is the future of this going to be? Does this have an effect on overclocking because you're limiting the amount of voltage that people can send to their CPU? What kind of effect will this have on gaming? As in the previous article, this is one of the better CPUs out there for gaming. So this is very interesting. And going forward, how is this going to overall affect AMD's reputation going forward? Will we see users start to flock away from AMD and just head to Nvidia in this case, or not Nvidia, but Intel? I mean, that remains to be seen here. But again, this problem is affecting ASUS and Gigabyte motherboards. So if you're out there and have this CPU and have the ASUS and Gigabyte motherboard, let me know if you're having problems with that down in the comment section. Also, if you are having problems, I hope you don't run into this issue with that. But if you are, make sure you definitely go out there and update your BIOS as soon as possible so you do not run into the same issues that other people are having. And that is everything that I have for you today in the show today. Let me know down in the comment section, what do you think about the situation with the AMD CPUs burning up their motherboards? Also, are you worried about Microsoft knowing all your browsing habits, as it is definitely leaking its information out to Bing? And Samsung, how is Samsung going to rebound from this? Now, let me know down in the comment section, and I'll see you down in the comment section. Once again, all these stories can be found on my website at sounds30.com, where I curate and aggregate tech news from around the web. I cover all the major topics from Apple to Samsung, Android, computing, and even more general tech news. So if you want to stay up to date with the latest tech news, make sure you head over to sounds30.com. Again, I give you everything you want in one convenient location. So once again, thank you for taking the time out. Please do me a huge favor and consider hitting that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. Check me out on my socials on Twitter, and I'm also on Gab. I'm also on Minds and pretty much every other place as well. And until the next video, guys, stay nerdy.